But yeah, it's something I've actually talked about this the past couple of years when I've seen changes in the charity realm, the things that have been changing, and one of the big things being like post-COVID charity, and even mid-COVID charity, and sort of the dynamics that happen with online content. Obviously, there was an incredible amount of at-home work. There was a lot of jobs lost, a lot of money being stored for living through those difficult situations, and we're still seeing the effects of that. Was it Tiltify? Or was it St. Jude? Down here? That's fine, yeah. If you close the door, it'll be fine. I can't remember if it was St. Jude or Tiltify that was saying, like, they were down 40 to 60% of normal donations. And obviously that's quite a big shock. That's quite a big shocker to charity. Luckily for us, charity doesn't have a leaderboard, or it does, but the leaderboard doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, raising money for charity is raising money for charity. And the weirdest statement you'll ever hear about charity initiatives is, we wish we didn't have to do charity, because the fact that we have to do charity means that there's no system to support these actual causes. And we just want to see causes supported with money that we can try and get from people who can donate. Charity is always weird like that. Charity quite literally means out of the goodness of heart and voluntarily offering up support in any way possible to support systems that will not receive support from systems that can or refuse to. So, GDQ. The preface. Alright? Let's preface this. 2.2 million raised this year. An astounding number. Okay? 2.2 million raised this year. Are there any other points I want to bring out about this? Let's see. That's not just the argument. Yeah, 2.2 million. We'll just keep it simple. It's 2.2 million. The current discussions that I've seen in the past 48 hours. Sounds good, Broken. The amount of donation incentives missed, I don't actually know that number. I know a couple of them were missed. I didn't watch GDQ all the way through. GDQ is no longer I take time off and watch 7 days a week. I only get to watch GDQ because that's the same time I take my vacation. Controversy, I know, dude. The clickbait worked. It's not controversy. I just want to incite some conversation and some thoughts, because I think personally, and we've done this before with other initiatives like Unite for Change, with other things going on Twitch. I just like to share my own thoughts, because this community is incredibly good at talking about things and not getting pissed off at each other and like immediately discrediting opinions. And those who do are no longer here, not because we killed them off, but because they don't like to talk, they just like to yell. And we don't yell here, we like to talk. Because no one, at the end of the day, we're not trying to be right or wrong, but I more or less just want to give my opinions on what is that? Oh, that's my dad. I'm like, why do I hear buzzing noises from the rain? It's my dad doing sawing. We love yelling. I know. It's great. So either way, the current discussions that I'm seeing on Twitter, this is all I see on Twitter and parts of Reddit, but I'm not scrolling Reddit. All right, people are talking about lower than average viewership. They're talking about not a PB in fundraising. And the third one they're talking about is COVID precautions, such as masks. The main thing is just masks. Those are the three things that I see everybody talking about. And the big one that I am going to talk about is stalling for the blind Breath of the Wild run. Blindfolded. I want to separate this one from the other three. I don't care about these conversations today. These are not conversations I care about today. All of these points at the top matter not to what I want to discuss. This is normal across all of Twitch, and even then there has been showing signs of them having more current viewers in other years versus this year already. People are just stuck in the past with that. Not a PB in fundraising. Charity is not about reaching PBs, it's about raising a lot of money. The fact that they raised $2.2 million is still incredible. The fact that another charity could raise $400 is equally incredible. To a lesser extent, but lesser does not mean worse. Charity is charity. You raise money, you put on a damn good show, it's successful. COVID precautions. Guess what? We still have COVID. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. Right? Let people wear masks if they want to. Let them not wear masks if they choose to. I don't care about your opinions on it. Not like I care about how you feel, but obviously in this particular context, I don't care about the conversations people are having here. The conversation I do care about is the stalling. This is not the first time this has happened. And I want to give sort of a thesis. I kind of want to give a guide, more like a guiding point. I'm actually going to mark this so I can make this a separate thing. You did miss a GDQ. You did miss a GDQ. It just finished yesterday or this morning at like 6 or 7 a.m. Yeah. I want to give a guiding point to conversation today. All right? And this is my main argument for today. Bonus gains need to stop. I want to cast your minds back to 2019. In 2019, this is kind of like the first sort of cited stalling that everybody kind of remembers, and that was with the Chrono Trigger run. For those who don't remember, Chrono Trigger was the final game in the run. It was supposed to be an any percent run with more donations, but with a I think it was with a 2 million goal. I think with a 2 million goal, it would become a 100% run. All right, and the hour and a half. I can't remember the exact amount of time, but a lot of time was spent, and a lot of waking commentary was spent selling out donations. And the conversation back then, right, the discourse was, we're talking too much about charity and not about the community of speedrunners. That was the main thing that was being said, right? This is an aggressive guiding point, but it's there for a reason. This was kind of that discourse that a lot of people were fighting over. It went two ways, right? Argument one was, who cares? It's for charity. Argument two, GDQ no longer is now corporate. And argument three was kind of like, there needs to be a better way. Those were kind of the three that I remember the most. Now, obviously, I'm not a historian of GDQ. I watch GDQ quite a bit. I've watched it since about 2014, 2013, I think. 2015, I don't remember even when it started. But, like, I've watched it for quite some time now. I think probably around 2015 would have been when I started with it, maybe 2016. So these are the arguments that people are doing, and the thing is, a lot of people do a lot of the, like what ended up happening is many people like to do binary arguments, and I love watching these types of things happen because it makes me think about my own charity initiatives and what I do, and the types of things that I try to make happen on this channel. Obviously, I'm a small marathon organizer of me and anyone I recruit onto, and and the community jumps in a bunch and helps out a bunch, shills the hell out of the site, or shills the hell out of my channel, jumps in. They don't get any compensation unless I send them like tiny prizes, if that, right? People do this out of good of their heart. We try to raise money for Sick Kids Hospital. That's what we do here, right? The same thing is happening with GDQ, right? We have a professional team of organizers and caring people who are trying to produce a community and a charity initiative that is literally raising millions for Doctors Without Borders, right? In 2019, when people were looking at this Chrono Trigger, right? The idea of incentives is incredibly brilliant, right? This is smart because you are converting something that's going to happen, or you're trying to get people to convert something that's going to happen into something longer. The goal, right? The goal is extend the marathon, right? That's what everybody wants. The entire week is spent about reminiscing about the shortness of time, or about the short time we all have together twice a year, right? So what ends up happening is this guides a lot of actions that you see. So a lot of people try and get, incentives into multiple runs and stuff like this, and try to push the limits, get those 2 million. Like at this point, 2 million is kind of like that standard that we're kind of seeing. Like 3 million is kind of the standard for AGDQ. SGDQ has always been smaller. It's never done as well. It's in a different part of the year and stuff like this. People don't have their bonuses, or many people are more busy still, either in school or stuff like this. So AGDQ is generally more successful than SGDQ. And I don't have the numbers to back that up, but the numbers always feel higher when I'm watching an AGDQ. The viewership's much higher. The excitement's much higher for AGDQ. I'm sure there are many people out there that I was reading who have a lot more better statistics on this thing. But it makes me think about this extending the marathon, because I'm all for this. This is great. I love the notion of having events be enhanced, right? Having things enhanced. Obviously, when you sign up, and if you're a bonus game, they'll tell you, hey, if you're a bonus game, you might not make it in, but if you're coming to GDQ, like, obviously you're going to come to GDQ, make the trip out to wherever, and we're gonna push to make sure we get you in there. And usually it's a pretty big name for the bonus games, or, like, it's a game that would be a little bit more, like, it's either more obscure, or it's well-known, right? They'll mix it up and stuff like that. So, for example, Bubsia, a very, very, very popular blindfolded speedrunner who does, like, Super Mario 64. He's currently learning Dark Souls 3 blindfolded. He did Breath of the Wild 80% last night blindfolded. Like, he's done a lot of great stuff. He's a really great guy, super awesome creator, and he was the final game. His game was a bonus game, right? And what I've noticed the past couple of years, at least, in full force, is day 7 stalling. And what ends up happening is about like 1 to 1.5 hours is spent trying to get the final bonus game. Now, notice how I don't say the final incentive. It's the final bonus game. There are other incentives that you could give into, and they're using the total to achieve this. While others can, to achieve this, while other incentives are supported. And this is smart because, you're getting near the end of the marathon, so, those who are going to drop the big money have either already dropped it or are going to be saving it, like Fangamer, the Yeti, all these people are collecting their funds that they've made throughout everything, and they're making sure that the other people are donating first. I do the exact same thing. I don't donate my bit of the year until the end because I want to see what the total is before I jump in, right? My total is always built up with September, Tabletop Appreciation Weekend, any kind of matching, any kind of special events. The April Fool's Day Subathon now also supports that. So there is a fair amount of money that I would donate that would contribute to this total. However, in order for us to understand how the actual initiative goes, we generally tease a little bit, put some money here or there, and encourage people to kind of match these goals. And that's not a problem. However, this is what a lot of people talk about, including myself. And I find it to be, when I woke up at 5 a.m. this morning, seeing that they were still going. Sometimes these events have gone longer because everything's gotten in and they have technical difficulties and things like this. I begin to wonder whether or not the stalling happens for the reasons that people think it happens. And I agree, Perf. If speedrunning but also being done to contribute to charity should be of value if they both are important to the event. And that's where I look at events like this and think about, okay, I could ask this, right? And of course I'm always going to be in favor of the money's going to charity. It's not for profit, it's for charity, and that's fine, right? They make a profit, they have to, because they need to make something in order for them to pay for the services, to pay their employees, and everything like that, right? They have to come out with something. That would be ridiculous for the size and the amount of work they do throughout the year now, especially, where they wouldn't receive some kind of compensation. They need something. And all that money's going to charity, right? So this has to exist. It has to, right? Now, one could question, what is the definition of corporate, and how far can it go? And the answer is that's not up to you to decide. We can't decide that, right? If they are under incredible pressure from other brands and people supporting them, you know, now it's a Red Bull interview station and stuff like that, or a Red Bull recap and things like this. That's how it works, right? They tell you what you have to say, how you got to sound and stuff like that. They've been pretty consistent, the more brands that they've brought on, and they've kind of identified themselves as an incredibly safe and awesome community. People complain about sub-only mode, where I'm sure you can find many watch parties that don't cost you $8 to talk in chat, $8 Canadian. The goal for GDQ is to be the leading community to be as inclusive and as hype as possible. Because speedrunning is pretty benign until it's not, because it needs to be something that... Because it's something that doesn't change until someone finds a new trick, or you find people who actually come out from other communities and want to run in those events. Speedrunning becomes very dry when it's mostly just any percents or 100% or stuff like this. Like a lot of people are citing, a lot of bigger speedrunners or more renowned names. Over time, the more you watch Super Mario 64, you can still have your mind blown with it. Nothing wrong with that. 6, 7, 8 times, it would be a matter of like, okay, yeah, it becomes more of a background thing. Not everybody likes that. Some people just want to see new things. I know my time viewing has gone down significantly simply because there are games on there that I am not interested in, or there's just certain creators I like. Yeah, you know me, I'm very particular with voices. If the person is not a good commentator, and I was finding for a couple of years, I did this convo about a couple of years ago. A lot of people are really like a lot of speedrunners are not very good at talking. This year's couches were very good. There will always be some outliers. I'm not going to call them out, but I will say a lot of people were very, very good at organizing themselves and not being boring info dumps, right? It felt a lot more dynamic this year. So that was nice. So with an event like this, you need to push for this. You need to get more things going with it. It's for charity. It's still popular. People worrying about, you know, oh no, viewership is dropping, we didn't get another PB, GDQ is dying, ESA will take over, oh no, look out, all these other things. You also have to remember that speedrunning has become so accessible now. That's gonna happen. That's what's supposed to happen. That's part of the community building. We now have Flame and Frost Fatales. We have Juneteenth. We have the GDQ hotfixes. We have so many events going on. It would make sense even if the viewership dipped down, but total viewership is gone. I think someone put out statistics. Like, concurrent viewership was way higher back in 2017, but overall viewership, despite it being down 5 to 9%, has been more consistent up all the way through, yes. I did not. I got a bucket. Like if you check in the drawer, maybe it was a liquid. I got third shelf in the furnace room. I didn't get a box. I got a jug. Sorry, guys. One sec. I put it on top of the white towel. Is that what you needed? Is that what you needed? Okay. So yeah, even though the numbers were like down at peak, the consistent viewership is still there, right? And on top of that, you have VODs which are put up way quicker now. You have people watching post-marathon. All of these things matter, right? So when you look at pure numbers, this is like people saying you only speedrun for PBs. Those numbers are dangerous to try and match. We didn't hit a PB in charity last year. We still raised $3,600. The year before that, we raised $4,000. The year before that, we raised $3K. The year before, $2,600. We still raised money, right? Even if this was to end at $770, we still raised $770. Will I push for more? Yes, that's what charities do. We push to try and continue to get as much as we can and do as many initiatives to make it both community and charity focused, right? This is the argument that becomes tricky because a lot of people have a lot of great ideas. And sometimes it's not about creating new ideas, but reflecting on the ideas. And I've reflected on this whole thing happening for the past 2 or 3 years. Right? This is something that I've always thought about since that Chrono Trigger run. Because it was such a big talking point, and people got really stuck on this. Right? They got really stuck on these things. And that's usually my indicator to go, okay, well, everybody's chirping about those two things that everyone's going to have opinions on. But I like to think of, well, what could make it better? What would have made this any percent to 100% better? I don't think it's about making it better. I think it's about looking at what they did with it after. And that's where I want to talk about this Day 7 stalling, where the bonus games in the past couple of years have had this about 1 or 1.5 hour super awkward recap fest of people talking and waiting and standing there, waiting for money to pour in for people to reach deep into their pockets and put money towards charity. Again, money's going to charity. Great. Is it getting conversation? 100%. Why? It's incredibly awkward, right? Let's see. Let's see what people are saying in chat right now. 11th hour deluge that extend. Doctor, good to see you. And Surf, good to see you guys. 11th hour deluge that extends to the 12th hour is all about engagement. They're not just trying to push for the inclusion of the last game. They know that the last run is a big pull, and they can extend the engagement of their hour by having to pre-run donation call and get eyeballs on the donation counter. Yes, you need that call to action, right? You need that. You need that last. You need that time crunch call. That is how it works in charity. There's nothing wrong with that. And I do agree that there needs to be an engagement. My argument here is that the engagement sucks. That the engagement takes away from the actual, the engagement actually takes away from the actual event and becomes nothing but donate, right? 2021 or 2020, there was one really, it was in the last couple of years. It was during COVID. There was a really awkward marathon, GDQ, where we barely got any information about the run that was happening because it was like a same thing, couple 100,000 away from reaching this goal to get this bonus game in, where I muted the stream. I couldn't listen to how many times they were telling people, get the $5 dono train going, come on, honk. Like, it was actually to the point where it was frustrating. Because it no longer was, I'm watching a speedrun, it's, I'm hearing please donate, right? And there is a way to balance it out and have it engaged. The speedrunner wasn't engaged with it. They were trying to do their run and show off their run, which is equally fine in a charity marathon. And they're trying to work with the donation reader. But that, I don't remember who it was, but it was just like, there was so much emphasis and awkwardness and every 5 minutes coming onto the mic. And what makes it the worst from it, like if I'm looking at my own, is I understand, too, in the last couple hours it'll be a little bit pushier. But it doesn't feel like they remember what they're doing. It just feels like a call, you know, like those call things on TV where it's like for 30 minutes they have everybody sitting around the phones, and you just have that one guy in the front going, make sure you get your donations. Call 905, donate now. Like, it just felt like that a bunch. And that's really taking away from people who have invested into this marathon because it's good advertising for them and it's to support that type of thing, right? Yeah, it's the telethon mentality, right? Telethon mentality is incredibly pushy and not what a lot of people like to hear, right? Telethon mentality, for me, was never a tactic I ever wanted to use. The cow, I'll talk about cow, right? Talking about the Minish Cap. We didn't reach the Minish Cap incentive to do all the cow incentives. And yes, I was a little disappointed in it. Obviously, I took into account a lot of people have been very vocal on the channel saying there are financial struggles, and I listened to that. Did I push any further? I still did. Am I going to be like going, all right, guys, I'm going to extend it 3 more days because I believe in you? I'm not going to be obnoxious like that. Because here's the difference. Minish Cap is still happening. I'm not inviting someone to my house to do the run, and they're showing up and I'm telling them, go home, nothing's happening for you. The run's still going on. It's an enhancement of a run that already exists. This is different, because this is a game that might not be played at all, especially with something like Breath of the Wild, which was slated for 1 hour and 45 minutes. Obviously, everybody else says, okay, fine, if it doesn't happen, I'll show up 2 hours early, I'm going to the event anyways, right? But the scheduling implications of how these bonus games work, the first 6 almost just feel like no matter what, it's going to get hit, right? And I know that's a tactic, where they're like, oh yeah, we'll hit the first bonus game, no problem. If it doesn't, we'll only fall 20 minutes behind. And they put the longer runs later on, and people know, here's the names, we kind of bait them, we know the, like, you know, they definitely have tracked and use statistics and algorithms to understand when their numbers are going to waver and peak, right? When a lot of people talk about, oh, they didn't hit the million by Wednesday, it's like, yeah, but they know what's going to happen. They can run that back, and they understand all of this, right? Let's take a look at some other things that people said. The sub only is important given the number of people there. The other thing, Surf, is without sub mode, it was even worse, right? Like, there's nothing wrong in the sub only chat now. You still have trolls. Remember that GDQ heavily prioritizes an inclusive space and keeping things clean. And while I don't personally agree that they do the absolute best and most consistent job, because there are certain jokes that sort of slip through, I also like to see it as a transformation of they are focusing specifically on getting rid of bigotry, sexism, ageism, ableism, and making sure that everything that they stand for, like, they are the LGBTQ speedrunning community, right? Like I do not think I could ever say there would be another marathon that would go as hard as they do into that, because obviously we're all good people. We want to support that community. We do support that community, and they have made it their almost mission, their vocation, to ensure that it is done the best way possible. And if you guys watched that Darkest Dungeon run, I felt so bad for that guy, and I want to talk about that too, where people were trolling, and because he didn't turn off his Steam overlay, people were sending really hateful friend requests from usernames that are incredibly anti-trans. Especially, I believe that was on June 1st, when Pride Month started. Incredibly despicable. How that gets through with something like GDQ, if it's someone my size and something slips through, sure. Something happens on an end on a smaller marathon, sure. You start racking up GDQ status and something like that's happening, and it takes them, 35 minutes to put up a black box and not stop the run to tell him, hey, you messed up, we forgot to check to see if your Steam overlay is off, it was also your responsibility to check that, turn that off right now, stop the run, get this cleared with, and their solution was a black box. After 30 minutes of terrible anti-trans names, that was a bit of an obnoxious situation. That was very pissy. I was very pissed at that. That took them way too long. And I'm not sure exactly what happened where they were trying to figure out a strategy. A black box, I could build one right now in 10 seconds. There are supposed to be people watching this run. The fact that lasted for so long was, in my opinion, a pretty dark moment of this GDQ. But I'm not looking to necessarily focus on that and talk about that. That's just a side note. But the sub only makes sense, right? Trihex did non-sub watches alongs for GDQs for several years. That's fine, right? And again, a lot of people do that, and they'll try and go watch with their other favorite speedrunners who might not be going to GDQ anymore or didn't make it into GDQ. Doctor says the PB thing or overall viewership is of limited utility as an argument. COVID-19 swelled the audience significantly, and the community has more competition for return media markets. Exactly, right? So that's why literally if we scroll back, I don't care about these conversations, right? This doesn't matter with anything that I'm saying, right? These are all independent things, and this is still the most important thing to understand. That money still went to charity, the marathon was still a success, and what they have done is still successful after so many years. People have complained every year about different things, and there are issues that still come up, and maybe issues that will always come up. And that's just how it's going to exist. That happens with any marathon. Good afternoon, Hero. Small 5-10 minutes for the next game after, which you don't have a problem with. I don't have that problem either. That makes sense, right? The 5-10 minutes goes in. Snowbear, how you doing, man? One of the issues is always running behind schedule because of bonus runs. The atmosphere has really changed for some of it's hard to identify. It's not the corporate stuff, it's more the environment, and they latch and drive memes to the ground each year, and then it's also the overlays get a bit more busy and less viewer-friendly. In what way has the atmosphere changed for you? I know you say it's hard to identify. What aspect of the environment are you referring to? I would need guidance to understand what part you're looking at, because obviously, like, they've evolved a lot. The memes thing is, you know, orb honk, yes chef, Jesus. Like, okay, that's not for everyone. For some people, I'm gonna use my therapy training and go laissez-faire, right? People will do karaoke until the day they die. It's the same. They'll sing Sweet Caroline until they can no longer say any words at all. It's the same thing here where people will run Yes Chef and Orb into the ground to the end of time, right? No different than me posting a ProPokeNoob and talking about a Jack Dunsparce, right? It's an icon and people latch to icons because we don't see these icons all the time, right? Like, you know, like if someone posts GDQ spin every time we watch a Sonic run, nobody bats an eye at that, because that's something more common and more prevalently seen. But it's because these memes get condensed to 1 week and get bent, like burnt into the ground and branded into our ears. That's why we notice it more. And yes, I would argue it gets a little overrun, and you can sometimes hear it from the donation readers, where a lot of them are into it, and then there's some that are just like, yes, chef. Thanks for the $5. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, you have to keep it going, right? I will admit I've done it too with certain jokes in my marathons in the past too, where it's just like certain things I want to drop, and other times I just gotta bring it up, right? Like, it's how it goes. The overlays have changed. I'm not a graphic designer, so I don't feel like they've gotten busier. I can understand why you'd say that. It's true. I do like some of the things they have done. I really like the chat interaction one. I would argue that they shrunk it too much, because I felt like, especially for the online, it made sense when they made it bigger and they want to show off the audience too. But I did like the idea of the emotes from the audience being a little bit of a bigger deal than it is now on the overlay. Nitpicky, and I agree. I don't really have much more to say with it, right? I agree that run enhancements are a better idea, especially things when the run can be started one way and then altered partway through for a strict stop time. That's the safest way to do it, Surf. The way that I read it, right? For someone like me, my size, or maybe like ESA, really longathon, things like this, those are better because the scheduling is a little bit different. Where smaller marathons usually have multiple people or one person doing multiple runs. It's GDQ has such a huge saturation. Enhancing many runs might also just lead to everything feeling the same, right? So having bonus runs can work, and they would work more because they would stand out more, and it gives people FOMO, right? The biggest thing that I really, really, really dislike about charity, and I've struggled with for years, is instilling FOMO into people, right? I don't want people to feel like, hey, you missed a Super Mario 64 Archipelago run I would have done if you raised enough money on April 1st. Lol. I don't like that, because for me, charity is always an optional thing for people, right? Charity needs to be an optional thing because we voluntarily give our time and try and make it work, where if I can make a little bit of cash on the side to make more cash to fundraise harder, now I'm supporting myself, not sacrificing my own life, and charity is benefiting. So now we've got the best of both worlds. I'm a big believer in not being paid to do charity, but to make money while doing charity in order for you to run a better charity event. Not to profit because you're a charitable organization. There's a difference. And hopefully I said that correctly, right? I do believe that people should have support going through it. And sometimes you have to take on brands or things like this, you know, like when people talk about the Red Bull recap, it's like, it's fine. It's just Red Bull. It's no different than in friggin' sports. Where it's like, and here is your NFL Bud Light Pringles throw of the game. Like, that's how they keep paying. That's how they pay the bills and make their money they want to make. I don't care about that shit, right? That's normal. It happens. And it doesn't take away because unless you're just going, and here's my Red Bull trick called the Red Bull BLJ. Like, unless you're just being obnoxious about it, which most brands aren't, or it's removed enough from the content it doesn't really matter, right? But run enhancements, in my opinion, if you do too many of them, yeah, it'll just feel kind of strange, especially on their size. They need something that stands out a little more and brings in brings a larger audience into that sort of FOMO. Get your donations in. It's kind of like a, in case you forgot, here's an urgent donation. Sky, good to see you. I think that was last year. Because I feel like it was an in-person marathon, but I don't think they did in person last year. But it was a more recent marathon where it was like we were just sitting there, and I remember staying up too. And obviously it matters differently. Like, you know, Hero's asleep, so it doesn't matter to him and over in Europe. But for me, like, I'm staying up trying to watch this run. Like, even last night I was trying to stay up waiting for the Breath of the Wild run, and then I fell asleep halfway or near the end of the. Like, I was like, oh no, I'm falling asleep during the Super Mario run. I guess I'll just watch it in the morning. And then I wake up at 5 to go to the bathroom. I look at my phone, and the Breath of the Wild runs on. I'm like, I look at the time. I'm like, didn't I fall asleep at like 2? What the fuck? Why is this still on? Why are you guys still running it? But you still have Super Metroid after this, right? Man, you really extended that marathon, didn't you? Maybe not in the way you expected it to, but maybe you did. Safe space stuff is around. I think it matters tremendously. It's good to have. I agree, Snowbear. I believe in when people talk about esports, or when they talk about when I hear people talk about sports, right? I worked in sports, right? Phys ed background, stuff like this, right? Sports is a very toxic culture. Esports has that toxic side of its culture, right? People talk about the fighting communities, the Pokemon community. I'm not afraid to say that. We're pretty goddamn toxic people. I've never seen so many people fight about what Pokeball is best for a Pokemon, and whether or not Quick Ball is a shame to shiny hunters everywhere. Who gives a fuck? Right? But these are the types of things that happen, and people always have an opinion, like how I'm giving an opinion right now. Is my opinion going to be like, these people are doing it wrong? No. Do I think there's a better way of doing things? Yes, there's a difference. But they have taken the stance, right? GDQ and speedrunning is trying to take that, we can be that community that makes people say, maybe it is possible to make a change, right? So the moderation makes sense. And moderation is difficult to do, especially if you don't hang out in larger streams. Like, I've watched creators where they talk about, they literally have weekly meetings to ensure that everybody has the same rules down. It's like, okay, when we're working on this, what spoilers, what level of trolling are we going to let people get to and stuff like this? There are unhinged streams, and that's okay too. That's up to the creator's discretion. GDQ has decided, hey, we're going to prove everybody wrong and try to create that inclusive space, and that's a good thing, right? People should not be complaining about that because they can't talk in chat. When you see what people did during that Darkest Dungeon run, I'm kind of glad that they have good moderation. I wish they would have answered that a little bit quicker. And even then, there were times where there's still certain people in chats who are like making lewder jokes, and I'm going, some lewd jokes get banned and others don't, and that's the tricky part of moderation, right? Making sure that if it's like, you know, you don't want to show favoritism and, oh, well, this kind of lewd joke's fine. It's okay to talk about breasts, but it's not okay to talk about genitalia. Well, it's like, well, both are pretty personal. That's where people have to be on the same page and make these runs, and I definitely trust that GDQ has those types of standards that they discuss and go from there. So, you know, I'm glad that they do it this way. They have no choice, so they keep a clean mentality, even if it wasn't their personal brand, particularly for GDQ. They're representing, they're representing Doctors Without Borders, right? Oh, I didn't actually know that they were the leading provider for LGBTQ. Huh. That's interesting information. Yeah, I mean, like, they're a professional organization. I'm not going to come on here, right? If if I'm running for Sick Kids, all right, you know, you've got stuff like Rooster Teeth who does fundraising for Extra Life, and they have, like, you know, the dildo toss and all that other stuff that they do, and you can have raunchy 18+ charity streams. You know, it depends on your audience. It depends on who you're trying to attract. Dropping an F-bomb here or there, not a big deal. If GDQ decides it's going to be G-rated, awesome. That's fine. If people mess up, what are you going to do about it, right? You can't go back, and unless you're going to have a delay and then censor it, which they haven't done yet. You know, people joke about, oh, man, they said the shit word, right? Like, things happen, and it's pretty open, and, you know, they're strict about it, and people get people are penalized, and it's just the way it is. And that's okay, right? You want to keep it as clean as possible. You know, if I accidentally swear on Harry's stream, I say I'm sorry, and I try my best to keep it going. I don't think I've messed up more than twice ever on his stream, and there are times where I haven't messed up at all. It's called being human and being yourself, and when you're asked to be something that you're not always comfortable being, that's the challenge that you embrace when you take on those challenges. That's not a problem, right? There's nothing wrong with that. So, you know, like, I don't care about the keep it clean mentality. I think that might derail from my point here, which is not a problem. I like talking about this stuff. Yeah, the Shen Bulbasaur joke was something. The Shen Bulbasaur was another meme. But again, the other thing too, just a final note on the whole like memes and culture thing. It really depends, right? It really depends. Because what's fascinating to me, you know what made Orb really obnoxious? Not the fact that Orb was a meme. It was the fact that you had like 5 or 6 dudes in the back of the audience that people were getting pissed at because they were in their ears going, Orb! Orb! It's a circle, Orb! To the point where that year, I still remember one of the readers being like, guys. Like, that's what made that meme obnoxious. And then people equally got pissed off with Chef because everyone started wanting to name things Chef. But nobody gets upset that everyone wants to name Chrono Goku all the time, or we want to name everything Bidoof. Why? Because it's personal preference, and it has to resonate with the majority. A neurological condition? What, you mean like my stomach thing? A couple of months ago, actually. It's been a bit of a struggle. Not sure. If that's what you're referring to. But that was the thing, is with the memes and with the culture, there are certain things that just don't hit with, oh, shouting Orb into the microphone. Well, you see, sometimes I like to keep people on their toes. Orb, you know what I mean? Like, it's just sometimes you gotta remind people why people were really against Orb. That's what it was. That's what made it obnoxious. And everything was, yes, Chef. Thank you, Chef. You know, Jack and Chef slur. Like everything. Like, it really depends on how deep people dig the meme. And people will dig that meme in. They did it with Honk. They do it with all that stuff. Oh, really? My apologies. I'm not trying to mimic anything like that. Yeah. Like, it really depends on the meme, right? Atmospheres just naturally change because it's bigger. It's not bad for me. So yeah, and I know a lot of people have mentioned that. Even some bigger speedrunners. I won't mention names because I don't want to throw people under the bus. But I've heard that resonate quite a bit. Snowbear, the accessibility of it has kind of removed the specialness of it, and I think that actually shows with a lot of people not knowing that GDQ was on. Lots of people were making mention like, oh yeah, it's a week early. Like it's a little bit earlier this year than it was in previous years. But the big deal too of it is, you know, when people say, oh, it's being diluted by GDQ hotfixes and stuff like this, that's not what's happening. It's just the fact that now we have hundreds, if not almost thousands, of marathons that do what GDQ does just to smaller audiences. And speedrunning is no longer this niche, you're in a community and it's tight, right? And that's not a bad thing. The culture does change with that, though. Similar to esports, look at sports, right? You know, everything felt good in maybe League of Legends, Dota 2. It's really big in the Russian community, and all of a sudden it starts going to NA, and it starts going to EU, and suddenly it gets a little bit more diluted. And diluted in a sense that it's sharing. It's like sharing a bus where it's like, hey, the bus. Everyone loves the bus when they're not sitting next to someone. Now all of a sudden you got someone sitting next to you. You got someone standing up with their junk in your face while you're holding onto the pole. Now all of a sudden you hate the bus, right? There's nothing wrong with either state of existence on that bus. But speedrunning has become that same way too, especially with marathoning. A lot of people do marathons. The reason why I moved to marathon content is because marathons get more eyeballs, right? It's more fun, way more creative expression, way more freedom to gain ideas and to have collaborations, which is a really big point in content, right? Content is, if you look at Backstreet Boys, right? The big thing with Backstreet Boys, the big thing with boy bands, with K-pop bands and all that, the group starts off popular like One Direction, and everyone loves Zayn, right? They love the personality of the individual. So the individual starts to stand out less when the community gets large. So people split off and start doing their own things to try and stand out, and then that stands out, but then everybody does that, and then suddenly it's like now you're in that whole, oh man, no one's a ninja anymore, right? Like, no one's like Ninja anymore, where he brings on Drake and all of a sudden he's super popular. He's even popular before that, right? Everybody was doing that. They're bringing on famous people. Then you've got, is it not KSI, Kaisenant? Kaisenant, like the biggest guy who just broke that record for that, right? You have Ludwig, Mizkif, like these people who have done that. Hey, we started as really popular individuals, now we became a group, and now the group kind of dilutes everything, and then you try to stand out again as yourself, and it becomes like that. So yeah, that sentiment has been felt with, I think, GDQ in general still there. I would say that what you're saying is something that I've heard a lot of people talk about with speedrunning marathons, and how speedrunning, if it remains the same, and this, again, if it remains the same, and I'm not even talking, like, rando can get boring after a while too, right? If it remains the same where you're waiting for a game to become mobile, where it has a new trick or stuff like this, you're watching Super Mario 64 for the 12th time in a row. Or 12th time, and very little has changed. Oh, instead of us doing 16 stars, we're doing 70 stars. There are different tricks in this, but some are similar. Right? I can go watch a bunch of Super Mario 64 runners now. And that's a good thing. It just means content's more open. And this is why today I want to talk about this. Right? That's why I'm focusing on this particular thing. Yeah, people will miss certain messages, Hero, of course. Good to see you, Monarch. Small time competition is just easy to keep clean. When the stakes go up, extremes in motivation, it erodes the barriers against poor behavior established by community norms, is magnified by 100-fold by highly online. Yeah, exactly. Right? Anonymity allows for certain things to happen. The sub-only mode makes sense. Right? All of the space, like everything you guys are saying makes sense. Absolutely. So, what is my suggestion? Because I don't like suggesting things without having solutions, right? I could just yell this into the void and talk on Twitter and just go from there. Or I could point this from my own thing, right? My concern for GDQ, because I care about GDQ, not because I want to beat them one day. It's not my goal. I love GDQ. I think they do spectacular things, and I have been very vocal about a lot of things that I'm critical of simply because I care. Exactly. The void will yell back, and that's all right. That's when you start sticking your foot in and see if another foot comes back out, because then it might be your own foot in your mouth. Whoa. But, I want to look at this stalling, alright? What does stalling do? It brings negative feelings of FOMO and takes away from how people look at the actual marathon. This doesn't mean that they're doing a bad thing, right? What this means is everything that they are doing is correct, but in my opinion, with the wrong tone. The tone of the final run or two gets drowned out by you trying to make this bonus run really harms the end of the marathon. And when people talk about the PB, I think that's where that sentiment comes from. That's my read on the situation. I think what ends up happening is people see that we are just pushing in the final few hours to get as much money as possible because we're trying to get a good amount to show off to people on social media and to their donors, that it sort of removes people's attention from, hey, this is a speedrunning marathon built by community members for community members. Right? It doesn't mean people aren't having fun. It doesn't mean that people aren't all for it. Otherwise, we wouldn't achieve those donations either. The complaints, for me, are born out of this fact that the stalling, of all things, is boring. It reflects nothing on the actual marathon's hype. Nothing. I have said this for years. Stop the interviews. They are not helpful at all. I learn next to nothing about the runners. I don't care about the interviewers, I'm sorry to say, right? There are some spectacular interviewers on there, and there are some that are practicing to be interviewers. I'm not watching GDQ to have them practice their interviewing skills for their resume. I'm watching GDQ to watch a community of speedrunners come together to sell out a charity, to raise as much money as possible, and build as much hype around all the runs as possible and have fun. If I want to hear about their stuff, which I do, put it in a documentary. Put it in mini docuseries like they do before the event starts, right? That's my first main suggestion. The interviews are long and stall time for tech teams. Cool. You could also make videos and go, hey, you know what? These runs take a little bit longer. Watch this 15-minute video on ProPokeNoob and his journey through speedrunning Hollow Knight Randomizer. Boom! Hi, my name is ProPokeNoob. Here are some of my great clips that I do during stream. This is what I do. We now have an ultimate thing. I'm talking for 15 minutes. Me, the runner, the person that's being represented in the marathon. I don't think they can, Hero. I don't want to sound cruel. I don't think they can. Because for a marathon that's supposed to stand out and try and push the envelope, that side of it has become so stale. And even worse, like, they tried to make it interesting by doing the little games thing, like the match game and all that. It's like, stop. Stop. I don't like using the word cringe, but Jesus, cringy Christ. Cringe Kringles over there, man. Like, it doesn't do... It makes me hate the marathon. I'm just sitting there like, all right, next stream. Like, I don't watch them. Some people do it. It's great. I believe that the interviews can be done better with actual interviewers or people who actually train in interviewing and don't use the event to practice their interviewing. I didn't go on a TED stage without practicing 11 months as a public speaking teacher. I practiced for the stage, right? These guys have practiced over years, and some of them are naturally great at it, some aren't. That's okay. That's what happens. When it's that big of a thing, like, it's a pretty sizable chunk in the time in the marathon, right? The recaps are, like, cool. There's a better way of doing this. There's a much better way of doing it, right? The interviews, I don't learn, like, when I listen to an interview, I like what ESA does, where the interviews actually show their clips. It's like a minute and a half. They do, like, these little, like glitch showcases. I like that. Why? Because there's not a second person talking. The people who are at the marathon are being represented in full, right? I don't need them to have their face in there because they manage the event and they have to have some sort of exposure on the event, right? I always find it interesting when organizers join the event because I'm like, that's cool, that's fine. I don't have anything wrong with that, right? There was one year where they had a little bit of short and some people show up twice or even 3 times, and I'm going, this seems a little bit suspect, don't you think? Not suspect in that they're taking time away from other people, but it's like, it makes you wonder. And then they're still on top of that. They're still on top of it with the recaps and with the interviews and stuff like this. And even if they're pre-recorded or whatnot, like, it's even worse when it's pre-recorded because you can tell, and then there's literally no mention of anything currently happening. I think that's the worst part about the pre-recorded interviews when they happen in the middle of the night. I'm not asking someone to wake up at 4 a.m. and talk to someone who's going to be running at 5 a.m. who might be, like, super miserable and just want to do the run and get it over with. I'm not suggesting that. That would be cruel to everybody. What I am suggesting is make the things relevant all the time, right? If you're not going to talk about the current amount being raised in every marathon, in every interview, don't talk about it at all. Why do you need, like, use your recaps to talk about it? That should be the time you're doing it. If you're going to talk to the people, you could ask about the run that they're currently running. You could also just let them talk about it. Put the camera on them, let them talk. If they can't do that, use multiple clips. Make them take little shorts. Give them, like, tiny questions to answer and go with that. Because you're just doing it live and making it less edited and more obnoxious when it goes wrong because it stands out. This is stuff that I've learned as a public speaking teacher, as someone who obsesses over communication, who has watched back his VODs, who have said, that's not good, I need to do that better, I need to improve this, this is great, do more of this, right? Like, I've taken time to analyze myself over years and analyze other people. I've taken classes, I've looked at this. I'm not an expert, but I have experience. And I can tell you right now, the thing that will ruin events are the people running it. If your MC sucks at a wedding, your wedding sucks more, right? It could be the happiest day. If the weather sucks at a amusement park, no matter what, it's always worse. It's always worse. Doesn't matter how much you like the rain, it's always worse. And it's the same thing here. If your MC sucks for an event, just that much gets lost in the event, that can be more than enough to make people talk the way that they talk, where they're like, GDQ is dying, right? I'm not asking for perfection, but I am asking for enhancements to things that they currently have to improve what they have going so that it remains sustainable and progressive, right? You don't want it to become just another charity marathon. That's the fear every person has in charity. I don't want to be just another Tiltify link that people click for Sick Kids Hospital. There needs to be something that stands out. And while that, like the Pokemon game show will be the big one, right? The game show changes every year, but the game show will eventually get boring for people, maybe. Or because I have found a way that keeps it so casual and so engaging that it might not ever become boring, but just sort of like the thing that everybody gets hyped for. That's what GDQ is. Everyone gets hyped for it, right? But there could be pieces around it that can cover that hype. And that's the concerning part because of the sheer magnitude and size of it. Right? Because of the amount of influence they have. I represent a minority of people who critically analyze this event, right? There's still a huge group of people who still have fun with this marathon, this event. And I still have fun with it. My care and my critique is because, as someone who has experienced it and sees what is happening, more or less looks at how it's run and what it means and why people critique from their position in the community, right? Because I truly believe, even if you're a nobody, your opinion could still matter if it's a good point. It needs to be analyzed. Because otherwise, things will keep going, and then you just have toxic sports culture that's built, right? And you could say that's a them problem. It is. And it stems from sorry, let me go back because I lost my thought. It's not a charity's fault. Like, let's use the context of GDQ. It's not GDQ's fault that there are anti-trans people, right? They are supporting trans people. The anti-trans people are just more visible because they've been exposed. Same thing with sports. It's not my fault that I'm a good referee and piss people off. They're just toxic ass faces who want to be upset because the ref is right and they're wrong and they don't know any better and they've always been able to bully people to get what they want. You can't eliminate those. They can exist together. The big deal is, though, when you get to issues on things that you do control, such as hype, such as engagement, that's when it becomes an issue. No, GDQ non-events transphobia. Amazing. Isn't that, Doctor? Isn't it incredible how me being a white male who's middle class and was born this way did not invent racism? What a concept. Isn't that wild? And I don't perpetuate it because I'm a good person. Wow. I could be a white male and be a good guy. Holy shit. Look out. I'm awake. Anyways, judging the charities by hype and not the impact is why I just do my donations every year and never join up with the philanthropy. And you know what? A lot of people feel that way. I'd like to believe that I like to have my charity recognized. Not through numbers. Through event. Right? I want people to be excited to do it. Right? I do it because I care. Because I feel a connection. And because people have a damn good time. That's why I do it. And that's what GDQ does. That's what a lot of marathons do. They do it because they care and they want to make a difference. Is the number important? Only if I have a person holding a guillotine over my head. No one really has that. And if they do, that's their decision to put that pressure upon themselves. If they're trying to run something of that magnitude, they need that support. That's how it goes. We don't know that sector. I want to donate to people who I care and throw damn good events. Right? That's why I say, like, it would be great to once again hit 4K this year. If we don't, I'm not going to be bothered by it. Am I still going to push for as much as I can? Absolutely. Because that push is part of the hype that builds the event that I want. And that type of event brings donations. That's proper business, and that's proper charity, right? That is giving people the comfort and the space that they might be looking for, where they're like, you know what? $5. Maybe I do have $5 after all. Or you know what? They go, hey, you know what? One day, if this keeps going on, I'm going to drop that hundo I've been feeling. Right? Am I wrong? A lot of people, when you listen to people being like, I didn't know GDQ existed, this place is spectacular, please take my donation. That's the result of them seeing, hey, these guys have done a good job for years. Maybe they do deserve a donation from me, and maybe I'll put some money aside, right? It's happened on this channel, too. We started at $95, and our community has grown from, like, an average of 3 to an average of 11, which is still amazing when you think about it. And fundraising's grown from double digits to quadruple digits. Put on a better show, focus on the things that are the best for everybody, give the people what they want, while holding your own values and not being a sellout ass face. Suddenly everything just works together. The hype and the success becomes one. So what does the stalling do? Not that. It doesn't do this. It doesn't bring anything, right? This has nothing to do. We're not sitting on the marathon for 7 days a week, in 1 week, waiting for people to donate. Why is it so boring? Why are we stalling, right? My proposals. Number 1, and obviously all of these are going to come with their own pros and cons. Number 1, no more bonus games. They're useless. They're useless. They damage scheduling. FOMO to the max. Like, I don't like them. There has to be a but to this, though. And the but is, and we know, they're great for pushing donations. Right? They're absolutely spectacular because of that FOMO to the max. They are amazing for pushing the numbers. Huge. Right? So that proposal is pretty aggressive. Just no more bonus games. Proposal number 2, enhanced runs, which is my preferred one. This is my preferred suggestion. Why? Everything still happens. The hype is around more of the same, not just more. Not more of the same. More, how would I say this? More and better, in quotations, not just more. You can enhance a marathon. Consider this, chat. Consider this for a moment. Oh, I gotta read what Surf said. Mildly related, the last thing my wife called cringe was learning how when my dad came back from being stationed in Germany, people say nano to him because Mork and Mindy had come out of... Oh my god. I don't even know. That was Robin Williams, right? I think. Jeez. Consider this, chat. I have a 20-minute speed run on normal. But I have a hard speed run that's 25 minutes long. Is that giving you more? Marathon? Sure. Is it giving you a better marathon? Maybe. But is this something to aim for? Yeah. So does it matter? Yeah, it does, actually. Because here's the thing, at the end of the day, I'm still getting a run. I'm still getting something. Right? You could donate out of the goodness of your heart and never watch the marathon. You've gotten satisfaction of that, right? Better is subjective. But different gets eyeballs. It doesn't have to be that much better. It could be the same, like, think about the Bid Wars, right? Think about Bid Wars. Bid Wars. Cosplay, as Sky just brought up, right? Bid Wars, cosplay, sing-alongs. You know what these all bring? Creativity. Yeah, we had the Miku wig, right? That was Sparkles during the Coliseum run, right? Argig with the Sonic costume, Pepsi Man, right? Like, these are good ways to enhance a run. Why? Because they make them better. And the way that people see better is it's more. It ends up being the more that can do the job, right? Because no matter what, even if you don't achieve it, and this is the other thing too, my concern is the inconsistency with incentives. People were okay in Kingdom Hearts 2 not having some of these incentives come through. But suddenly, when we're about to miss a game, every 5 minutes, I need you guys to donate. We need a $5 croissant train. I need everybody, yes, chef, yes, chef, yes, chef, yes, chef. $5, $5, right, get us to 2 minutes. Like, why didn't we care about that during the Kingdom Hearts 2 run? Right? If we put in incentives, why are we not bombarding people every single time with incentives? We're only bombarding people when it's getting to that final part, and that usually means those last runs are just nothing but advertising bombardment for donations. That kind of sucks to kill, like, I don't know if it kills the hype. It builds the hype for some. For others, and the reason why I think people complain is because you're watching the marathon, and the end of the marathon should be the most exciting, and, like, let's celebrate the whole week that we've done. Look how much we've raised, guys. We can keep going with it, and look at these runs, and it's just like... Hey, hype! Oh, no, oh, yeah, okay. They won't shut up on the mic at all. They just keep talking about donations. Yeah. 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 Yeah, chef. Yes, chef, $5. Yes, chef, $5. And it's not even like, and even then, in the final couple of runs, usually they ask for time to talk about donations. They get a little more aggressive on the final day. And they start, like, just throwing in donations when the readers feel like they have the space, and that might be an agreement they make. I don't know all the back details, so I'm not going to make too much note on it. But it's just interesting to me. And not everything is consistent with that. And it feels kind of shitty. It feels kind of shitty. That certain people's ones around day 4, day 5, those incentives might not be met. And, hey, it's people's call, right? People didn't donate enough for cow. They don't get cow. Did they want cow? Probably. Did they have the money for it? No. So it could be the same thing on GDQ, right? Maybe they really wanted the Kingdom Hearts 2 incentives, but people were just not awake. Like, it's a 4 a.m. run. You gotta, maybe it'll be a little bit lower on average depending on your demographic. If I do an incentive from 1 to 4 a.m., I don't expect the numbers to be as high as if I do an incentive for, like, on a Sunday than me doing, like, an incentive 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. when most people watch the stream. And I'm, like, during the time of the majority of the demographic of the community, right? So, yes, it could be like that, too. But the point is, you still have an inconsistency as the marathon goes on, especially in the later parts of it where it becomes more like that. Hey, Suwako. Good to see you, man. Yeah, them shouting orb over the whole thing is not fun, right? The hype gets killed because it's inconsistent. It becomes less about... Look how amazing, because like they do the Super Mario Maker relay race, right? They usually do a Mario ROM hack. They have that final game they're building up, and like Chrono Trigger was spectacular, right? The 80% to 100% felt great. Yeah, the stalling was a bit awkward, and I still argue that with the enhanced run, they just need to be creative and eyeball-y, right? Get more things going, right? But it feels like there is an imbalance between the beginning all the way to the end. And while, yes, you want to push and remind people, hey, we're running out of time for donations, there's a reason why people get frustrated with certain things after a while in the marathon, I would argue. And the reason why I'm talking about this today. Now, another thing you could do. No, I didn't really think this point out, so I'm not going to mention it. I was going to say something along the lines of, like, eliminating other parts and just putting in more runs. That's more of a scheduling thing, and I have no idea how that works. So I'm not going to make any note on that. This is what I would say will work more. I know these are better for donations because FOMO hits people to the extreme and gets them. Why am I talking about this today? This is really bothering me at 5 a.m., and I just wanted to talk with people who have good opinions, which is this community. I appreciate everyone with the great conversations today, and I love talking about this kind of stuff. It makes me think about my own charity initiatives, right? Not to take away from the GDQ thing, but it makes me think about the reason why I do charity and the reason that I do things in charity. Even if I'm not hitting the best numbers all the time, right? When I think about an event, and when I think about critiques of my event, as well as successes and what people come away with loving in my event, I think about what I've done to do this, and what I've done to avoid this, right? I'm not the same. I'm not stalling. I want to extend the marathon. I want people to have fun. The Rogan Randomizer Marathon, we're pushing to keep it going to the max. If it doesn't hit the max, c'est la vie. I'm still going to push and tell people every single day, donate to sick kids, get those donations in, you get the giveaways that you can get at the end of the run, or at the end of the marathon in September when we do the giveaways. You can get your games in. Every $75 we achieve, we get to go up and put another day into the marathon. You get more games, more fun. That's all up to how people donate, right? And I'm not selling that to you every 30 minutes. I don't need to. I don't want to, right? Because if I start doing that now, and I wasn't doing that before, that's not consistency. That doesn't show that the amount of energy that I'm investing to keep both community and charity going is remaining in balance. And that's my concern for GDQ. Is I want to see consistency, right? I don't want to see this day 7 stalling bullshit. I shouldn't be waking up at 5 a.m. If the marathon goes on long enough because they have that long of runs, awesome. The fact that the marathon was extended because they were waiting for this to get hit is weird. It's a weird feeling because these 3 arguments come up and you want to take a side, and I don't think you can take a side. You can take a side. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. But it's weird to take a side for me. Because I care about this. I don't really care about this, but I understand this. And I want this to happen. So if you're watching this in post-editing or whatever, and you're questioning, why would I make such a clickbaity title? And why would I, put so much thought into this? One, I'm involved in charity, and I'd like to demonstrate that I do think about these things as much as I'm very, very, very sure that GDQ thinks about it. And I hope that it gives perspective on why people complain about this. People will always complain. I just want to give context to it because I want to understand it for myself and for the future of the marathon to see how much I care about it. Obviously, I care a lot about this because I just want to see things done well, right? And they do well. I just want things to be. I want things to be better, whatever better ends up being. I'm not a fan of the stalling. I'm not a fan of the attention being shifted near the end of the marathon. I do think there are better ways to do the interviews. I do think there are way more interesting ways of getting people to donate for games. Like we said, these work in the past, keep doing them, right? Co-op runs, spectacular. That was great. The Overcooked 2 got people's attention. You built a new meme. Congratulations, right? The co-op Super Metroid, I'm sure it was great. I fell asleep during it. You know, the verses in Super Mario Maker 2, there are a lot of great examples. The blindfolding, the blindfolded run is great. As a bonus game, it's kind of tough because that kind of hits in the crossroads between me being excited for that kind of idea and also this. I'm not saying every run has to be, here's me beating Tetris with my big toe only. I'm not saying it has to be that levels of extreme for difference. But I do think that you can have a bunch of normal runs, but when you want to make those pushes and you want to get people to hit those goals, it needs to look less of a, hi, my name is, and this is, and we're doing this, and let's talk for 5 minutes while we try and get some people sold on the side to do a 5-minute dono train. And then when we get into the run, oh, it's just another any percent run that you watched last week. Sometimes I feel like the decisions on the hype side and on the organizational side is being pulled in ways of, we don't care about PBing, but being at 2 million really does look good. And I think sometimes that yanks a little too far that way. That's my opinion. And it's not meant to influence or piss off anybody or encourage anybody. It's simply food for thought. I like those kinds of conversations just to think about it. If something happens, cool. People get upset, cool. At the end of the day, they raised $2.2 million for charity. And that's the biggest point. They're still doing well. They're still put on a great show. And I believe there's great room for improvement to make the show the future of speedrunning and marathoning. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.